right, guys. So as Joe said, this is Ducks for Fun, Profit, and Land Development. And I'm coming at this from the very beginning today with the expectation that you want to make money with your ducks. That doesn't mean that you can't use 90% of the stuff that I have as a hobbyist who just has some ducks running around their house for land development, for fun, for personal use, and maybe selling a few eggs to your neighbors. In fact, everything here will work. And you actually, if you are not worried about making money, some of the specific recommendations on breeds and stuff like that, you can do whatever you want to. So actually this works for everybody. But the limitations here are about making sure that you stay profitable. So I want you to understand that. I want to start out with, even though we're talking about ducks, with a couple of definitions. And if you've listened to my podcast, either business or survival, you've probably heard these before. But if you haven't, commit these to memory. And if you understand these two definitions about sales and marketing, then developing marketing plans, developing sales channels, everything gets so much easier. Marketing is the exposure to a belief. So if we think about it from a standpoint of ducks make really great eggs. And if you try duck eggs, you'll think that the best egg you ever had. That's an exposure to a belief. A sale occurs, whether it's financial or just a philosophical sale, when I actually transfer that belief to you. When you believe it enough to give it a shot, that's when we've actually turned it to a sale. And if that's how you have to approach all your sales and marketing, with that delineation between the two. And if you do that, what you end up doing is developing a compelling story that exposes people to beliefs. And what that does is it causes them to share that story with other people. And by sharing it with other people, those people then become exposed to the belief. That creates your sales funnel. And then all you have to do is get people to take that belief they've been exposed to and actually accept it. And once they accept it far enough, then you've got a customer. All right, so moving on. This is the layout of our farmstead with a few changes. You'll actually see how dramatic the changes are at the end. This is a little over 2 years ago. This is about this flyover by Google Earth was in February of 2014. So the pictures I'm going to show you at the end today are from February of 2015, and you'll see the dramatic difference the ducks have made. And there's a few changes we've made. Joe, they can see my cursor when I move it?
Yes, we can see your cursor.
Okay, all right. So if you follow my cursor here, you'll see this area here. This is the ducks' holding house. This is where they go to bed at night, and this little blocked off area is now expanded. This whole thing from here to here is now the holding area. We keep that wood mulched. And these gray lines represent the paddocks we initially put in. 3 roughly 1 acre paddocks. We call this the north paddock, the south paddock, and the west paddock. What we actually did, though, is we took this fence right here to about right there, and we just dropped it over like that. So now what we have is basically a 3/4, a 1/4, and 2 1 acre paddocks. And the ducks are able to exit through a series of gates. A gate here, there's actually a gate here, and then there's a gate right there that lets them out to this paddock, and then this gate now lets them into this little paddock that runs from here all the way down here. And they go in a rotation. Generally, their rotation, 7 days, 7 days, 5 day, 1 day. In the summer, when things get a lot more harsh and the land's a little more brittle, this area is still under major development over here. They go 7, 7, 7, 7, 5, 1, like that. How do we come up with that? We don't have hard, fast rules. We just watch the land. If they're overgrazing, right now they probably won't be over here for a month at least, because it's really hot, it's really arid, and in spite of all the recovery, we don't want to go back on that. So right now, for the rest of the summer, probably into late August, they'll go back and forth on these 2 paddocks. But that's the basic system in a nutshell of how we run them. I want to talk about why we do ducks and what are the advantages over something like chickens. And my presentation is pro-duck. It is not anti-chicken. I don't want it to come off that way, but some of the advantages with ducks is, number one, they're trainable, they're herdable, they cooperate. We're able to actually move our birds to where we want them to be, when we want them to be there. If we actually decide in the middle of the day we don't want them in a place for a certain reason, like all of a sudden we have an impromptu thing where 20 people are going to show up at the place because it happens, and they're out front, we can just move them to the back. We can't really do that with chickens. They're soft on the land compared to scratchers. they don't tear things up. We do have some impact issues I'll show you, beak holes and stuff like that we have to handle with proper management, but it's a lot easier than chickens. We have a premium niche egg product. We were selling chicken eggs. We were lucky to get $4 a dozen. Everybody around us is doing chicken eggs. We could have went with a lot more marketing and marketed a premium chicken egg product. When we brought duck eggs out, it did it for itself. We're selling our duck eggs at $8 a dozen, and for the first time in 3 years, we have more eggs than customers, and that won't last long. We just had a really whole bunch of birds come into production right in the summer at the same time. It hit a high water mark, and we lost a big restaurant customer, but we've picked up like 3 more since then, and we're heading into the molt. So we'll actually be on the other side of that problem very, very soon. If you want to do meat, it is a premium niche meat product compared to chickens, but we don't do meat. I'll explain why with numbers in a minute. They're very good at foraging. Right now, the vegetation is nowhere near as lush as it was 2 months ago. It stopped raining. It's 1,000 degrees out, but the grasshoppers are everywhere. And I'm watching them right now in the backyard, running back and forth chasing grasshoppers. And they'll do that till they're hot and tired. They'll lay in the shade. They'll take a bath, and they'll go do it again. They're highly self-sufficient. We really don't have to do anything for them all day long because I don't have ponds here. I fill up their kiddie pools every day. That's about it. Other than that, we make sure they have food and water, and they take care of themselves. They pretty much put themselves to bed at night. We give them a little bit of motivation to get them in, and that means we can spend the rest of our days doing our main job. So we're part-time farmers, full-time podcasters, and because of that, it allows us to actually do other things without having to care for them. They also, to me, they make good friends and coworkers. I like their personalities better than chickens. They like to hang out with you. They follow you around, but they don't get too attached to you, and they're just pleasant birds to be with. Breeds for consideration. Now, again, remember at the beginning of this, I said that I'm coming at this from a standpoint if you want to make a profit. So if you want to go into homesteading, you can see at the bottom I got some dual purpose breeds. You can order a random variety pack if you want to, because it doesn't really matter. They all lay eggs. They all do a good job, and they all pretty much act the same. Their mannerisms kind of all equal out. You can say this breed's calm, this breed's skittish, or whatever. When you put them outside, they all kind of homogenize into one. But for egg production, the only breeds I'll even work with, because of the numbers that you'll see there, are the Metzer 300s. That's my go-to layers. And they'll produce for us 200 to 290 eggs a year. And we've done some calculations. We think some of our birds are giving us 300 plus eggs a year out of that group. Khaki Camels, I only have a few, but they are just a go-to high egg yielding bird. Welsh Harlequins, 150 to 200 eggs per year. And they are a beautiful duck. And those numbers are the official industry numbers. And our experience has been that they produce somewhere in between those numbers and the Metzer numbers, more in line like 220, 230 eggs a year. And runners are listed at 100 to 180 eggs per year, but they have a really high feed conversion rate. If you ever see a little penguin running around, they're so lightweight, they don't need much feed. And they actually are extremely high layers in India and Asia, where they're from, laying as many as 300 plus eggs a year. I think a lot of our domestic runners actually do have a higher laying count, but they've kind of been bred out of them because everybody here focuses on color and show ducks and stuff like that. So if you find the right runners and start that selective breeding, you could end up with just as many eggs as the 300s and better feed conversion, but you got to do the work where Metzer has done the work with the 300s for you. Meat production, I wouldn't even do anything but jumbo Pekins. Just if you run the numbers, 56 days to slaughter, 10.25 pound average live weight gives you a 6.3 pound average carcass weight. That's about the only bird I would do. I don't do that. I'll explain why in a second. If I was a homesteader and I wanted a dual purpose bird, Welsh Harlequin, Silver Appleyard, Rowan, or Cayuga. Those are the 4 that I would look at. You can do Muscovies too, but they only lay part of the year. That we'll get into that later in the presentation. If you were doing meat and you wanted a really niche product, there's something called the Slow Food USA Arc of Taste. And this is what all the foodies are into, and there's a whole list of stuff, and your goal is to travel the United States and eat one of everything on the list and cross it off. The only duck on that list is the cayuga. So if you found the right boutique restaurant, you may be able to turn that into a niche product. The problem with dark colored ducks for commercial production for meat is there's always pin feathers left behind, and they make a not quite so pretty carcass. But if you were selling to that market, you could get around that. Just a few of the breeds we're looking at. These are actually the Metzer 300 golden layers. That looks an awful lot like a Swedish duck there, but that's actually what the male 300 goldens look like. And the females look sort of like a little bit bigger golden khaki Campbell, a little bit lighter color. These are the white 300s. They look like little Peckins. They only get about 4 3/4 pounds live weight. That was not supposed to happen. But you can see that the males and females and the whites look identical. This is a Welsh Harlequin, and you can see why I say they're a beautiful duck. I tell them they're my most pretty girls I have out on the property. And this is your classic khaki Campbell. These are the breeds that we just discussed. These are the primary ones I would use for egg production if I were you. Why I focus on eggs? It's all about numbers. Farming is fun. I enjoy it. It's a great hobby. I think it's important work. I want to support the local food movement. But if I don't make money with it, I can't keep doing it, especially at the scale we're doing it. We're running about 150 birds. If I was running 25 birds and I was just breaking even, I wouldn't care. But for us to do all this work, we have to make a profit. So I focus on eggs. First of all, eliminate a major labor expense and a major time expense, which is slaughter. I don't have to slaughter my ducks for them to be profitable. At $8 a dozen, average number we get out of our ducks is 240 eggs a year. That's $480 worth of eggs over 3.5 years. And that duck, to do that, will eat about $108 worth of food. I've never seen anybody be able to put up numbers like that with chickens on an egg business. And after that, if you really want meat, I still have a meat duck. Now, it's a smaller duck than a jumbo peckin, but it makes awesome sausage. I can take those ducks when it's time to cull them out. I get about 2 pounds of duck meat out of each duck. That's about all you're going to get on these ducks. They're not that meaty. That includes the meat, the heart, and the liver. I can add 2 pounds of pork to that. That'll cost me about $6 and about 25 cents in spices. That sausage sells for $12 a pound. So you can make $48 worth for $6 and change, including spices. That's a profit of $41. Now, I have no intention to sell that sausage, but I sure as heck like eating it. And I'm able to make that premium product for myself and my family at the end of the life cycle after that duck has already made me a very good profit. A 5-pound duck carcass, if you do sell ducks locally around here, sells for about $25 to $35. The feed costs on those birds is going to be about $7.20. You have to process it and you have to pluck it. And you only get that money if you actually are able to move the bird. My birds make me $372 in egg profit plus $41 a sausage. My total profit on a bird is $413 at 3.5 years cold time. I can't see any reason I would sell a bird that makes me $413 for $25 to $35. That just makes no financial sense at all to me. And that's why I take that approach. You want to ramp those numbers up a bit to see what they look at a cull. We bring our birds in waves of about 30 to 50, and we stagger the time. That'll be clear why in a little bit. But that means we would be culling a group of about 30 birds at any one time. I would add $90 worth of pork to those 30 cull birds, $6 in spices, and it'd make me $1,440 worth of sausage on cull day. I don't think I could sell those birds as meat birds and make anywhere near that. Even with 3 years of high production, though, I don't necessarily have to cull. This is another advantage ducks have over chickens. Chickens are born with 1,000 ovum. That's how many eggs they can ever produce in their life. Ducks are born with 1,500. So a 3.5-year-old bird still has about 780 in the bank. So that bird can actually be quite productive for another season or even 2, depending on how you manage your production, whether you use artificial lighting or not. Just real quick, when I say, this is how much this sausage sells for, this is on D'Artagnan. This is duck Armiac sausage. This is pretty much what I make. Only I think mine's better. $5.99 for a 8-ounce pack. So, I mean, it's right at that price. Basics of managing a laying flock. So you've got your birds. You want to manage them. What do you really need to get this done? Number one, you need a holding area. You have to have a holding area for these birds. If you don't, your life will be miserable. and they need to be trained to go to that holding area every night, and you need to wait till about 9:30 in the morning if you want your life to be easy, where you open the gate and let them out to party, because they will lay almost all their eggs by 9 a.m., and they will lay very few eggs during the day. You'll find a few Easter eggs here and there, but if you don't have that, you will spend all your time looking for eggs. So I've seen ducks walk across the field, an egg fall out of their butt, and that duck just turn around and look at it and go, oh, that was weird. They'll lay them anywhere. Sometimes they'll sit in a spot, but a lot of times they just pop them out. So you have that holding area. Wood chips, not straw. If you put straw in your duck holding area, after about the third time you put your deep mulch in, you're going to have a mat about that big of stinking anaerobic nastiness. In their house, you can put straw, but anywhere it's outdoors, you need wood chips. You need to find a good source for that. A shelter. Don't get fancy. They don't really need it that often. The colder your climate, the more likely they are to need it. We have a really nice, tough shed, 12 by 16. Joe can tell you that the reason we have it is it was here when we bought the place. I would have never put in something that fancy. Lean-tos, two-sided structures, that type of thing, just a place they can get out of elements. If you are in really northern climates, I'm talking like British Columbia where Joe is, for the winters, you need a more, sturdy shelter. Your problem then, though, is they get humid, and that's a bad thing for ducks. They can't get dry. So you need to balance that. I can't really speak to that much because I don't live where it gets that cold. You need a watering solution. Right now, what we use are big rubber tubs, 15-gallon horse feed tubs. We have them on concrete platforms. They set up the fences. You dump them, and they go outside, and we have little swells, and then we have a tree at the end of each one. And that way we're watering and fertigating our trees, and we're keeping the water out of the enclosed area. For their health, you need to have a regimen of bringing those wood chips in, especially the wet time of year. We did have a couple ducks die this year on us when we had rain like crazy this spring, and we think it was avian cholera. And as soon as we rectified the drainage problem, we stopped losing birds. We're not sure that's what it was, but based on an autopsy and basically the gizzard just being exploded, it looks like the most likely thing was avian cholera. That snuck up on us. We've been doing it for several years and never lost a bird like that. So it's something you do need to take into consideration. We're experimenting right now with what are called bell waterers, but I can't speak to it yet because we're not fully on board with them, that are supposed to be spill proof, but we're working that out. We tried doing a watering solution. It was a big piece of 4-inch pipe with holes in it where they could stick their head in and drink, and we had a drain, and it was going to keep them from pooping in it and all. It didn't matter. They skanked it up in a couple of days, because what happens is they have little serrations in their beak, and they get full of all different kinds of stuff. And when they stick their beak in water, they clean their beaks out. And it can make the water just as nasty as them pooping in it, believe it or not. Feeders, we feed in just basically pans. We had all different types of ways to try to keep them from spilling, and we just feed them in high-sided stainless steel pans. We don't fill them all the way to the top. And when we get a bunch of dust in one, we fill the next one and put the dust on top, and that pretty much gets them to eat most of the feed. You need to control their movement and their grazing, and you'll see examples of why in just a bit here. This is our main holding area. Like I said, we have a 12 by 16 shed there. You can see that we use a 5-foot-high horse fence to keep them in, multiple gates to let them out to the areas I showed you at the beginning. You can see that we have it very heavily wood mulched. Our plan eventually is to probably get something with a front-end loader on the farm. We're looking for a used one, or maybe a really low-cost, small, new one. And to once a year basically take these fence panels on the back fence back there that go from that gate to here are easily removed, and to basically scrape this once a year, because we could get a lot of compost out there, probably 30 to 40 yards a year, and we could really use that, as you can see, with some of the land we're still dealing with right here. So that will mean that then we're function stacking. We actually have major compost production, but you can just keep piling it until you have time to get rid of it, but you've got to keep it dry. We watch for any place where they kind of dig a hole. If they dig a hole and it starts collecting water, you got to fill that hole in with new wood chips. We probably go through, in the dry season, maybe 2 yards of wood chips a month. In the wet season, 6, 8 yards of wood chips a month we're bringing in. It's one of our primary expenses in labor and time and money. This is another shot of the holding area. As you can see right here, we have a little lean-to structure. This was for goats from the previous homeowner. While I would need more space than this for my number of birds, this type of structure would be more than good enough in my climate here in Central Texas. Daily routine. So this is what we actually do every day. We let the birds out into whatever paddock they are in for that day between 8:30 and 9 a.m. By then, most laying is done. We feed them breakfast sprouts, which are sprouted black oil sunflower seeds. I'll show you about that in a minute. We service their waterers, which means basically we dump them out, leave them dry out for the day, and we only fill up their waterers in their holding area in the evening. That way they're not going in there and skanking stuff up all day long. They have to go out to their pools, and they have to go out and they have to earn a living. We pick up the eggs. I should say Dorothy takes care of the eggs and the waterers. We dump the water tubs that are in the paddock. These are kiddie pools. We move them and refill them. They get dumped and they get moved every single day. Dumping them is important. Moving them is important, though, too, because when you dump them, they come in there and they make beak holes and they mud it all up. And you want to move them to where you refill them at least far enough away that when you dump them the next day, it won't affect the same area. We clean and package our eggs. Again, I should say Dorothy does that. We start soaking the next batch of sprouts. We flush and restack our breakfast sprouts, and we're done. We're done for the morning. That is the entire morning routine. It probably takes us about a man-hour each to do all of this, and most of my time is spent filling kiddie pools and dumping and moving kiddie pools. This is the sunflower sprouts we make. This is how much we start out with. These are just black oil sunflower seeds like you get at the feed store or Tractor Supply or what have you. This is bird seed. And that's about how much it starts out. Once it's grown out, we increase the volume to about this amount. It will pretty much fill a 5-gallon bucket almost to the top. We've done a bunch of different ways of doing it. What we came up that works best is a 5-gallon bucket with holes drilled in the bottom. You have one bucket for one day, you soak it. The next day you dump it into a bucket with holes in it, and you have 3 grow buckets. And that's where we've worked out to where it really isn't worth it to grow them any longer. The big thing to understand when you're doing this for ducks, these are not microgreens. This is not, this is not fodder. This is sprouts. And the good thing about it being sprouts is it's not like the sprouts you do for yourself on a sink top where you got to worry about all the shells. They'll eat that. It's good for them. It's fiber. It helps clean them out. But we believe a big part of the quality of our eggs is this concept of feeding them these sprouts every day. It also makes them very agreeable to where we want them to go. If I do not feed them on time, if Dorothy lets them out before I get out there and I look out the door, they are at the door if they're in the paddock where they can get to the door, and they are screaming at me. And when I walk out, they follow me anywhere I want them to go. And by always saying duck, duck, duck when we feed them, no matter where they are during the day, if I give them that call, that duck, duck, duck call, even though they don't think they're getting fed, they've now got a Pavlovian response, and I can bring them in from wherever I want them and move them wherever I want them. So this is a training tool, but it's also a very high nutritional boost. And as you have ebbs and flows through your seasons where you have less greenery, you're making sure they're still getting a lot of plant matter. And we think this, again, is a big part of why our eggs have this incredible deep orange color. In the evening, it's actually a lot less work. We fill the waterers in their holding area in the evening. That way, like I said, they only have from darkness till dawn to screw it up. We fill their feeders. They get 1/4 pound of food per duck per day, and they have to earn a living past that. That's how we make the numbers work. And then it's time for all ducks to go to bed, and we're done until morning. We've actually trained them. All ducks go to bed. They line up and they go to bed. People love seeing it. But all we did was we'd force them to go to bed when they were young, and I'll talk about training in a second, and we would say that as we were doing it. And when they get in there, there's great, nice, wonderful filled feeders and water. So it's a good thing to go to bed. And that's how we keep them, easily managed. I use what I call my broom of doom as part of my my management technique. It's something interesting about a duck for some reason. If you try to get them to do something, they have a certain amount of motivation. But if you have anything in your hand, like a stick or a cane, and you point it out at them, they get a lot more motivated. And you can also steer ducks. And what I mean by that is you have a duck in front of you, and it's trying to veer off to the left or the right. As it veers off to where you don't want it, if you hold that stick out and its peripheral vision, it'll still steer right back to where you want it. The broom of doom seems to work best for this, and I think the broom of doom is actually like a concrete cleaning broom from Home Depot that was like $7. It's probably the best $7 I ever spent. And so this is them going to bed a little bit early. Usually we wait till it's almost dark. You can see the sun is just going down right there. We usually wait till it's almost dark, and then 80% of them are in there, and we just yell in the restaurant in. But what's nice with this training is what was going on this night is we were going to go visit some friends, and we wanted them to bed before we left, and we were able to put them to bed early. So that's a real nice thing with ducks. Few odds and ends. Our feed ration of 1/4 pound per duck per day is based on good forage. Right now, they have grasshoppers. If we didn't have a big grasshopper crop this year for whatever reason, we would have to up their feed right now because we have a lot less vegetation. A lot of things that are green in the spring around here and green in the fall and green in the winter in our climate are brown in the middle of summer. So they have less to feed on. If they didn't have that surplus of those insects, we would up their feed ration. We always watch that. And basically what we want to see in the morning is we want to see a little layer of feed in their feed pans. If their feed pans are completely cleaned out and there's no food left, we'll up that ration for a while, then we'll drop it back down to that, that daily 1/4 pound ration. You should not use that number just because I do. You should figure out what works for you. You might actually be able to go lower in some climates at some times of the year, and you might have to go higher in other times of the year. You have to base that. That's our goal for our standard dogs joining me for our standard ration. That's our profit calculation formula right there. If they have, however, so when we go out in the morning, if there's no feed, that's a bad sign. It means they wiped it out overnight. There's nothing left. They're starving. If we go out in the evening, because they will come back to their holding area throughout the day from time to time, we don't feed them in the morning. We just feed them that every evening. When we go out to feed them in the evening, there's still food in their feeders. So now they've made it from being fed at night all the way to the next evening. Then we'll reduce because that means that they're getting enough that they don't need that feed. And they really love the feed we feed them. So if they're not eating it all, they're really gorging on hoppers or something. This slide I need to update. It says we're too kind to drakes and it hurts our profit. I just graduated like 11 drakes. And we were too drake heavy. And I really advise you not to do that. We had several of our girls, the back of their necks from where they grab them when they mate were just bare. We had some of our girls that were limping from being overbred. And so we just decided it was time for drakes to go. There was a pre-question about what I do when it's time for ducks to be processed. If I was culling and I'm going to make sausage, I'll do it myself. And you do just pretty much like a chicken, but I'm not going to pluck a duck. It's too much work. For sausage, you skin them, pull out the breast, pull out the legs and thighs, grind that, pull out the heart and liver. When I'm doing them like culls for drakes, larger birds that make good whole birds and things like that, I have a processor that processes them for $7 a bird. And I can't afford the time when he does a beautiful job at $7 a bird. I've loaded them in a dog crate. I take them down there. He takes care of them. So we just process some of them, and that's balanced our flock a lot. And we really should have done it longer before we did. Just be in touch with that, especially as you have birds reproducing. You get it out of balance with the drakes. You need to cull them. And the wild ducks pair up 1-to-1. In artificial environment, we give them everything they need. They're far from monogamous. Let's just put it that way. Cohorts. I want to talk about some of the other animals we keep on the property and what advantages they have and why they're here. One is Muscovy ducks. Now, Muscovy ducks are great layers. They lay mostly for us in our climate from January to June, and they lay heavy during that time. I'm talking sometimes they double lay. So you'll have one bird give you 2 eggs in a day. In fact, they'll give you like 150 eggs in that 180-day period. But then they're like, see you next year. So they have a bursty production. That's part of why we have this big surplus right now, because we brought a bunch of Muscovies in to make up for a loss by a predator, and they really just went ape on their first year production. Their best uses for us, number one, the meat from Muscovies is fantastic. They kind of taste like halfway between duck and veal. Very, very lean meat. They have a lot of fat that's in their skin, but the meat is typically with ducks, very, very lean, very deep red, very, very good. So they're a great meat bird, and they're a bird that when I cull, I will take to get processed and have processed, whole plucked, and then I'll part it out as I need it because they're so fantastic to eat that way. They're also probably the number one thing we use them for is incubators, brooders, and mothers. If we want more ducks, we just wait till a Muscovy goes broody. We give her eggs and we walk away, and she does everything. No brooder box, no nothing. They take care of it. And if you wanted to do breeding where you knew which eggs you were hatching, all you would do is, like, if I wanted to do Welsh Harlequins, I would just separate my Welsh Harlequins into like the goat holding area for, I don't know, 2 weeks, and with some drakes, and then collect their eggs and give them to a Muscovy. She doesn't care what eggs she gets. She just wants eggs. On Muscovies, though, they get so attached to the idea of brooding that they will literally kill themselves if you don't let them hatch sometimes. They'll sit there and waste away. So just be aware, if you're going to get these birds, you may have to allow some reproduction to occur. They'll hatch chicken eggs too, by the way, I'm just saying. And live bird sales. Around here, we can sell females for $20 a bird, and they sell pretty quick because people want them. This is what Muscovies look like. This is a random assortment of our birds. We call this big guy here in the center Elvis, and he's recently turned into the number 2 duck on the property as far as dominance. Muscovy drakes fight. Every other duck that you keep domestically is actually a mallard. There's just selective breeding, your color, sizes, shapes, profiles, etc., but they're all mallards. Muscovies are their own world. They're kind of like quarter goose and 3/4 duck, and they have combat with their males for their harems, and they will tear each other up pretty good at times. So that's another thing you have to watch is you probably want a drake ratio with your Muscovies of about 7-to-1 at the low end, and you can take them up to about 12-to-1 and still get very good fertility out of them. Geese. Okay, this is the thing with geese. We've learned this the hard way. We have new geese. They're awesome. They're beautiful. They get along with the ducks. They like people, and that's because we raised them with ducklings. The other ducks we had, we called them the barnyard mafia, and to be blunt, they were assholes. They really were. They would attack people. They would attack kids. Joe's got pictures somewhere, some kid running, and the goose is after him trying to bite him. We eventually got to a point where we decided they had to go. We processed them all except 2 that were peaceful because they'd come up with ducklings, and then we lost those to a predator. So Dorothy wanted more geese. So this time we brought in some Welsh Harlequin babies. We raised them together. They've always been with ducks, and we went to a breed called Pilgrim Geese, and they're the most calm goose that's available as far as the mythology around them goes anyway. And then the other thing that's nice about Pilgrim Geese is male are white, and females look a lot like a Toulouse. And so they're sexually dimorphic, so if you allow them to breed, it's really easy to choose your culls and keep your pair ratio right. Geese are best at a 1-to-1 ratio, and you can go to a trio, 2 girls to a male, but they're really monogamous once they're pair bonded. That's why they get along with each other so well. They also do get upset, like when there's excessive breeding or when the Muscovies are fighting, and they'll run in and they'll break it up. So they're good for that. When they're broody, you have to get them away from your ducks. They turn into psychopaths when they have eggs and they have a nest. We had one that tried to kill a chicken. It came out of the chicken coop with the chicken's wing in its beak, and it was just wing beating the hell out of it. They beat up some ducks pretty good, and it was beyond their normal bulliness. Once they're on eggs, man, you got to find a new place for them to be and give them their own brooding area. They produce 60 eggs a year that sell for $1 a piece on the low end. We have one gentleman, we have a lot of Asians buy from us. He's a Chinese guy. He said, no, you sell for $2. So we were telling him we would do for $1. He said, no, you sell for $2. So they are, you can at least make some money, and maybe not make some money on them, but they pay for themselves if you sell those eggs. They are awesome. They're about like that big. And I've not known anybody yet that's made one sunny side up because the yolk's about that big around and about that high on them, but they make incredible scrambled eggs. For meat, they'll get to 11 pounds in 11 weeks on mostly grass. So if you do have breeders and you want to go ahead and let them hatch out, they'll do a good job for you producing meat. They act like cattle. They graze on grass. The ducks are more of a browser. They browse some grass, some broadleaf. They eat a lot of insects. Geese, I've never seen geese eat insects except one thing, red wasps. Don't know why, but they like to eat red wasps. They pretty much ignore everything else. Again, they can be kind of jerks. This was the old flock. Joe is quite familiar with these guys. They were pretty good at biting. They bit everything. They bit me. They bit Dorothy. They bit the dog. They bit our. The only upside I'll tell you with geese is they don't really hurt if you don't pull back. If you pull away from them, they hurt. But if you let them bite you, pretty much figure out it's not working. They go off and do something else. This is actually a male goose, Toulouse goose gander, that for a few days kind of went sentry and guarded these baby ducks. This was a group of Messer 300 ducklings. So they have a very instinctual, protective attitude toward anything that they take as their flock. But again, the key is you want to raise them with ducks. If you do raise them with ducklings, they'll defend their ducks. The way we lost Buddy and Joe, our other two geese, the ones we had kept, is when a coyote came and attacked them, they ran out and engaged the coyote. And of course, a goose is not a match for a coyote, but a goose is a match for a lot of other things. A lot of things can just simply be scared away. So, and yeah, we had some antics. They're fun. There's Charlie and the goose in the window, and it can be a lot of fun. They can be a nuisance. That's Dorothy's shoe. They would come up on the porch and steal shoes and run away, seashells that we have, and just take off and stack things everywhere. Basically, the issue with geese is they're so intelligent they get bored. And because they get bored, they get into trouble because they need something to occupy their minds with. Dogs. You got to train your dogs right. But if you train your dog right, they're the best friend a bird can have. My number one training tool is a tool called the Dogtra training collar. It's an electric shock collar. It's adjustable, wide variety of adjustability. If you want to see it, you can go to bit.ly/canine control. You can see the link right there. You just write that down, and it'll take you. You can find that product. It is a great product. I do not believe that it's cruel at all because I've only had to use it on Charlie like 3 times to actually shock him. It has a vibrating feature. Once that dog understands what that thing does, dogs want to please you if you train them right. All it does is remind them and settle them down. We've had no problem with Charlie harming a single animal since we started using that collar for control. We actually can use our dog, who is a pit bull mixed with a pointer, a bird dog pit bull, to move our ducks and to deal with non-compliant disruptors, including things like when the Muscovies are fighting, Charlie will run out and just like T-bone them and break them up, which is good because they actually really will injure each other. They go at it very, very seriously. It makes predators a non-issue. When the dogs are outside, we just don't worry about it. And even hawks tend to shy away. And Charlie's actually learned recently to chase away great blue herons. We had a great blue heron trying to clean out our garden ponds. And it took about 1 day to give him loathing hatred toward all large birds. And so I'm a big believer in dogs. And a dog is as good as a human leads them to be. And sometimes even your best efforts will not be, successful. They will, cause trouble, but I believe in gentle correction. And I put this picture in here to make a point. When this happened, I said, "What did you do?" And because of my voice, he acted like this. This dog has no real understanding of what he's in trouble for right now. This is a posturing responding to you. If you're going to take corrective action with a dog, you catch the dog in the act and you take the corrective action, whether it's a swat behind the ear, a jerk, the collar, yelling at him, a shock collar, whatever it is. If it's more than 3 seconds since it happened, forget about it. You've lost the opportunity to train that dog. Now, what happened here is this is kryptonite. There was bacon grease in the garbage. There's the two of them together. They're quite large dogs. That tire in Max's mouth is actually a tractor tire. He can't use play tires. They're too small for him. He tears them apart. Predators. We've only ever had an issue one time with predators. If you're going to be on, a paddock system, large scale system, we're basically like in this weird, perfect area. Like it's like HOA's down the road in the city, a little bit further down the road, and we're in the country. And because of that, because of the population density around us, we actually have very few problems with predators. The one that we had as a problem was actually a coyote with sarcoptic mange that was basically going crazy, and it was attacking in the middle of the day because it was like sarcoptic mange will kill them eventually. It actually killed 4 different neighbor dogs that we're aware of at this point before I was finally able to catch it with Charlie, and we put it down. on like a bigger system, that's what I said, like a Great Pyrenees or Anatolian Shepherd or whatever, that's out of my wheelhouse, but I would consult a good expert if you're going to do this large scale, like a 500 bird, 5 acre operation out in the country. A single hot wire around the top and the bottom of your holding area should keep your predators out. And that's the area they need the most protection at night when they're asleep. Rats can be an issue. My number one rat trap, I've seen the thing with the peanut butter bottle, and you take a 5-gallon bucket, you put 2 cups of sunflower seeds in it, you fill it 3/4 of the way tall, and you set it where your rats are. Rats see the seeds, they jump in, they fall through like quicksand and they drown. We learned that finding them in our sprout soaking buckets, and then realized, oh, it can be another one. Snakes can also be an issue with ducklings and eggs. But if you have muscovies around, they hate snakes and they hate rats, and they go after them. And I've seen a goose pick up a rat and fling it like a toy doll. So they're pretty good about keeping the rats from causing predator problems. It doesn't mean the rats won't show up. So we have cats for our rats, and we still have some rodents showing up on the farm, though the population's way down since we brought the cats in. So I'm not saying that your muscovies and geese will control rat populations. What I'm saying they'll do is they'll protect the smaller animals in your flock from being fed on, predated on, etc., from both rats and snakes. As far as our eggs, we pick up eggs every morning. Our rules for cleaning our eggs, and there's all different schools of thoughts on this. But again, I'm doing this from the standpoint you want to make money. If it looks good, we don't do anything. If it looks clean, we just leave it alone. Unfortunately, ducks like to make mud, and not all of them look good. If it looks dirty, we wash it with warm water. We do not coat it with mineral oil. We advise our customers, no matter what, to rinse their eggs off with warm water right before they crack them. This has resulted in the smallest educational curve for our customers. And that's what it's all about. We have happy customers, have a product that looks good, and we don't have to explain ourselves. And that's what's allowed us to make a profit and to be able to consistently just have people show up, give them eggs, and have no complaints. We had people where we explained what the blem, which is the protective coating, was. Some understood, some didn't. Some wanted them not washed, some didn't. The way we do it now, if we have a customer that definitely wants unwashed eggs, we're happy not to wash them. Tell us how many you want in advance, and we just won't wash them for you. Everybody else, this is what we do, and it's what we recommend. This is an example of why. As you can see, these eggs up here at the top, quite nice. You can't sell that to a customer. You certainly can't sell that to a restaurant. It just doesn't work. It's not like chickens where they lay in a box. Fencing. 3-foot fencing is good for your paddocks. Ducks don't fly really well. 5 feet for your holding areas. If they really want to get over 3 feet, they can. When they're in a big paddock, they're just not that motivated to. We run 3 paddocks, average size 1 acre. Again, now it's 3/4, 1/4, and 2 1 acres. Mostly on 2 for now. Like, this is summertime. So right now they're really on this back and forth on the front and back paddock, the north and south. So that's worked out well. Our capacity right now is about 150 ducks. That works out if you weigh the ducks and you figure out how much that weighs, you end up at about 500 to 600 pounds, which is basically a half a cattle unit. So we make our grazing decisions as though we were grazing a half-size, like, miniature Dexter cow. And they collectively, that's about what they do. Actually, a little bit less because they also feed on insects and things that cows don't. Muscovies. Muscovies can fly. I don't mean like fly over a fence. I mean like gone. And they won't leave, but they'll go places you don't want them. They'll mess things up, clip their wings. It will save their lives because we lost, and I'd say this with geese too, we've lost birds that fly over the fence and get hit by a car. So clip the wings, and remember, when they molt, after a molt, those fly feathers are going to come back. So while they're in the process of regrowing their flight feathers from molting, before they get fully airborne again and are hard to catch, clip them every year. If you have an annual garden, if you have a pool, if you have anything you don't want them eating, pooping on, messing with, fence it in, because once they know it's there, you cannot keep them away from it. They can be hard on some land with compaction and beak holes, and I'll show you some of the damages, the things that they've done. So these are the muscovies up pooping on my deck. This is an example of a problem. We're trying to figure out how to fence that area of the house and make it look good, but this is a typical scene every day. Everybody else, all the mallard ducks are out doing their thing. Muscovies are homebodies, and that's why we're probably going to cut their numbers to almost nothing in the future. They are the ones that eat Dorothy's ferns, the ones that go in my garage and poop in my garage. They are not the same as other ducks. I'll just put it to you that way. So really think about the value you get for them, and if you really want them, if you're going to have them. This is an example of our cross fencing right here. I have really hard rock slab just a few inches under my soil. So you can see what we did. We went with cinder blocks, 3-foot-high goat-style fencing. It's not really goat fence because no goat's going to be held in by 3 feet. Standard T-post concreted in, and then these are just tie wrapped, and it makes a nice straight line fence, and they're at 8-foot sections. If you live where you can actually put T-posts in the ground, you just eliminate the cinder blocks. This is very inexpensive, very quick fencing to install, and it lets you create your paddocks really quickly, do it in a very temporary manner. If you decide you don't like anything, it's really easy to pull T-posts out of the ground, disconnect it, move it, and redo it. This is what I'm talking about. This is an area where it got too wet for too long with too many ducks. And this area is well into recovery right now, but I took a picture while it was like this so you could see they compact it, it cracks, there's a bunch of manure compacted in that. And that area actually, once we got them off of it for a while and threw some mulch down, it blew up because there's plenty of fertility there. But this is the kind of thing that can happen if you don't move them effectively. And if you see areas like this starting to form in your paddocks, it's time to move them to the next paddock, even if you don't think it's time yet, even if your browse is still there yet, because this is a lot harder to fix than they've eaten the grass a little bit low. Land recovery and management. Here's how we do that. Number one, as I said before, we move the pools daily. So every day those pools move, and they move far enough that when you dump them the next day, you're not going to flood that area. If you're lucky and you have ponds in each paddock or something, half-acre ponds or something, great. A lot of us in these kind of small urban environments, we're going to have to give them kiddie pools. Utilize swales for dumping if you have them. That doesn't mean all the time, but whenever I have an opportunity, I always line my pools up at the back of a swale. And when I do that, and you dump it the next day, that water goes, all that fertigated water is right in that swale and it's spread out in your landscape. Cover crop and reseeding. In cool weather, you can seed annual ryegrass before you even move them to the next paddock. They don't really like annual ryegrass seed. I mean, if they were hungry enough, they might eat it. But everything else to throw down, if you throw oats or something like that, they're going to eat it. You're feeding them. But rye is something you can actually, as soon as they work an area and it's looking a little bit worn, you can hit it with ryegrass. They'll eat anything that's a grain, so think about that. Nitric-coated legumes are generally not eaten because they have that clay, that calcium clay on it, and they just don't seem to like it. So your alfalfas, your clovers, etc., that have that coating on them, you can generally throw that before they move. Anything else they're going to eat on you. Brome grass seed is also another thing they don't seem to really eat. So that's another thing you can use preemptively before moving them. When they take an area to dirt, get something growing fast. And my go-to for that, except for the summers, become annual rye. It grows quick. It has a lot of roots. And we all say work with nature. Well, you give nature something to work with. It's also cheap. I can get a 50-pound bag for $30 at Tractor Supply. This is an example of one of the ways we give them water. This is a 50-gallon stock tank from Tractor Supply. The advantage of these is they're permanent. I mean, that'll last longer than I will. But they're expensive. We mostly use $7 small kiddie pools that you get out in front of Walmart. And my advice on those is buy a lot of them in the spring, because about August, September, they disappear and you don't see them again until next year. And they do wear out and they do break. With 150 ducks, we run 2 of the big kiddie pools, like the big, larger ones, and 10 small ones. That's how much we're running every day. And we base it just on when we dump them, we start seeing some of them with like an inch or more of duck slurry on the bottom, we add a pool until that doesn't happen anymore. And every once in a while, you're going to get one pool where for one reason everybody want to party in there that day, it'll be that way. But you get 2 or 3 that are like that, you need to add more capacity. And in the summer, you'll need more because they're spending more time in the water to cool off. Training. Start your training young. From the time they're little baby ducklings, talk to them. Pick a word. I like duck, duck, duck. But duck, duck, duck when you feed them. Duck, duck, duck when you move them. As soon as you start letting them run around, when you put them to bed, Give them a command. Like I said, I like all ducks go to bed, but it could be a whistle. It could just be bedtime, whatever it is. If you do that, you'll be surprised at how fast they actually adapt to that. And once you get a core flock trained and you bring new ducklings in, when you introduce those ducks to the flock, and we usually do that around 6 or 7 weeks, when they see everybody else go, they just follow. It gets easier as you go. Feed them goodies in the morning as soon as they come out. That gets them into that routine. We're going to go out. We're going to get about. We're not going to sit back at home. We're going to go out and do something. That way we can come in and dump the water. We can come in and pick up the eggs. Nobody's in the way. Always have full feeders and clean water at bedtime. That makes them want to go. They want to go to bed because they're going to get fed. They've been out eating grasshoppers or grass or whatever all day, and now that great peanut meal's back there waiting on them. And be strict. Use the broom of doom. Again, there's the broom of doom. They respect it. My overriding advice with your ducks, you want to be Santa, not the fairy godmother. Santa's like your weird, creepy uncle, right? All the kids want to see Santa. All the kids want to be around Santa. All the kids want Santa to come. When you take the little kid to the mall, I'm going to see Santa. And then you get him right up to where he's about to go into Santa's lap. No. That's how you want your ducks to be. You want them excited to see you, but when you get to a certain distance, you want them to pull back. That makes it possible for you to move them around and maneuver them and get them to do what you want to do. Marketing and sales. This is, if everybody out there that has a small farm that's trying to figure out how to actually do business did just what's on this slide, your lives would get a lot easier, because all of a sudden it opens up a lot of business to you that you wouldn't normally have. Number one, look professional and have a good website. We went with a .farm website. It says farm. People expect it to be a farm. 9mile.farm is our website. We have an 800 number. I use a service called call8.com with a K. See it right there. Write that down. You can get a phone number for $2 a month, an 800 number. And I think for our vanity number, 821-FARM, and there's all different types of things you can search for. I think we pay $5 a month, and then we pay 6 cents a minute for incoming calls. I don't mind if you're calling me on an incoming call because you're going to buy something from me. And once we have a customer that calls us, they get Dorothy's personal cell phone number. We just route that to her cell phone. Pictures. Lots of pictures in your ads, in your posting, Pinterest, on Facebook, pictures, 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 pictures sell. People like ducks. They like to see pictures of ducks. I set up a board on Pinterest called Ducks just to see what happened. I put like 20 pictures on it, like 20 followers the next day. And I didn't use any of like my existing contacts or anything to do it. So pictures work. Blog posts, recipes, pictures, fun stuff, all different types of things with your blog posts. Have an email list and power it by your blog's RSS feed. I can't get into the technicalities of that right now, but if you use a service like MailChimp or Aweber, what you can do, and they have perfect like videos to show you how to do this. You take the feed of your blog and it'll show you how to find it, and you use it to create an email automatic trigger. When people join your email list, you don't have to email them. Whenever you make a post to your blog automatically emails them through your email service. And that means you do one thing and it actually does two things. We're function stacking. And then as soon as we do the blog post, we tweet it, we share it on Facebook and our other social media and things like that. We've got all of our bases covered. Make it easy to contact you. We have our phone number on every single page of the site. And we still have a contact page with a map and our address and our phone number. And the phone number's on that page twice. I've literally been on websites and just pretend this is my wallet and I want to buy something from the person. And I'm like, take my money. How do I give you money? Why can't I give you money? Because I can't figure out how to do business with them. Spell out how to do business. We tell customers on our website the procedure that we want them to use when they do business with us. We do not do farmers markets. We do not deliver. We don't do that. For some restaurant customers we do, but in general, we don't do that. You call us, you set up a time. When we're available, you come to our gate, we meet you, we sell you the eggs. You call us when you get here or you call us when you're on the way. You don't come in our gate because I don't want my dog to bite you. We say all that on our website, and on first contact, we say it again. And every time they call to come back and buy more eggs, we say it again to make sure we have no problems. Train your customer to do business the way you want business done, and son of a gun, they'll do it. But if everybody out there would look professional online, your job of selling offline would get a lot easier. I promise you. The logo we have, I think that's a pretty nice looking logo. I think I paid $300 for Nicodemus off the TSP forums to do that logo for me. That was money well spent. That's on a business card. That's on a shirt, you know. That's on a website. That looks like a professional business. This is why we're now in 5 restaurants and top-end, high-end restaurants, because we look like the kind of business that is a company that actually can fulfill our obligations. We'd be that whether we were that way or not, but we look the part. We also do a lot of sales on Craigslist, mostly just to individual customers. This is our actual ad. It's long, but I'm going to read it because I want to make a point. Most people don't know how to sell. They don't know how to market. They don't get it. We sell our eggs from free-range ducks. Our bird's diet is made up of free-range forage and Texas Naturals feed, which is a soy-free, non-GMO certified feed. We provide the finest product around. Our birds, again, are fed a premium feed. They're also free-range on 3 paddocks on weekly rotation, so they always have access to open spaces and get feed on pasture and insects, which are an important part of their diet. Each morning, they also fed sprouted sunflower seeds, which is a superfood and does amazing things for their health and the quality of our eggs. We have numerous customers that drive over an hour just to get our eggs. There might be cheaper eggs on Craigslist, but if you want the best quality and product from animals that are cared for at the highest level, give us a shot. One chef who uses our eggs stated recently, in 16 years of professional cooking, I've never even seen an egg of this quality. Yes, they are that good. We sell our eggs for $8 a dozen. Stop eating flavorless, watery eggs from the supermarket. Give real free-range, healthy eggs a try. Learn more at 9mile.farm to see how spoiled our ducks really are, how we raise them by hand from babies, and make sure they're always happy and healthy. Check out our YouTube series called duckchronicles.com. Pretty good, huh? Sounds like something you want to try? This is my competition. This is an actual ad on Craigslist that appeared right next to mine the day I posted that ad. Duck eggs, fresh, free range, $8 for sale. We have a dozen fresh, free range duck eggs. Call Eric. Seriously? And Eric's probably wondering why he can't sell eggs. You know, it's not the back of a magazine where you're paying by the word, guys. Tell your story. Remember, marketing is exposure to a belief. We expose people to beliefs by telling stories. We tell stories because they're memorable. We tell stories that hit high points. They go in. They make the person interested. Then the person wants to vet, is that true or not? Well, there's only one way to know it. Buy a dozen duck eggs and try it. And once you do that, I got you. You're coming back. Our primary value proposals right in that ad copy. Our eggs are free range, fed no soy and no GMO. Birds are spoiled rotten. They get freaking chamomile infused sunflower sprouts. Who does that? We do. I do it because it keeps mold down, but it just sounds better telling them they're chamomile infused. The birds are allowed to be birds. You and your family can come see the birds. We have thick, beautiful golden yolks, and once you try duck eggs, you'll never go back. And you know what? We've had almost nobody ask about organic. We are not organic certified. I feel like what we do is so beyond organic that I would be insulted to put the organic label on my product. But yet no one seems to care, because when you know all that, you're not even worried about organic. People want organic because they want a shortcut to knowing a certain level of care and quality and certain absence of certain substances. Anybody that looks at the way we're raising our birds, they have not a question in their mind about how those birds are taken care of. And by the way, you can have organic and just basically be a factory farm with a different kind of feed. That's not what we do. Actually selling when we have to. We keep a customer waiting list. We tell people no when we have to. Most powerful word in sales and marketing? No. That is, I mean, absolutely. Will you make me a deal if I buy a lot? No. Then I can't serve my other customers who want to pay full price. When we do have extra eggs, Dorothy calls her list in order. And up until this recent surplus that we have this summer, it would usually take about 10 minutes and all surplus would be gone. She'd start freaking out. We got 25 dozen eggs. She'd come back and go, they're all sold. Stop freaking out. It'll be all right. And when we get into low periods of time, like we're about to go into the molt, and they'll shut way down, and then in winter we have another low period, we've had customers beg us for eggs. Will you please sell me one more dozen this week? I'm sorry, I can't. We have a hard limit during our low period. And that means you've created real market demand. How we do business. All sales are on farm. We provide available times for pickup. We meet customers at our gate and sell to them. That's it. Except for our restaurant customers, and we pick and choose where we want, so we don't have to go far to deliver. That's how every direct customer buys from us. Will you come to the farmer's market? Nope, I ain't got time for that. Sorry. Well, can I buy 11 duck eggs instead of 12? Nope, we sell them by the dozen. I mean, it is that simple. We require them to call when they're on the way. We mention that dogs are defenders of the property. We have signage up about the dogs because my dogs, as soon as you're in this gate, they're a bunch of big love puppies. When you're on the other side of the gate, especially Charlie, he's dangerous. It's his job, and he knows his job well to defend the property. So we don't want anybody letting themselves in. We do tours when we have time. We request that they ask in advance. And when we don't feel like doing a tour, like Sunday we had a guy want to do a tour, I'm sorry, no, we're shutting down for the evening. Set limits for yourself, guys. You have to. If you say yes to everybody, you'll end up saying no to everybody when you go out of business. Selling to restaurants, at the time I put this deck together, we were in 2. We're now in 5. The ones that we were at the time were out of Clair in a place called Papa Chang's. We will deliver large orders, like I said, to restaurants that are close by. Out of Clair used a service to pick up from us. They were buying 20 dozen a week, and they're the ones that we lost. And we didn't do anything wrong. They didn't like us anymore. They just changed their menu. They sold 20 dozen plates of the rest of the thing they were using our product for a year, and they changed the menu and took it off. And I just don't get it. But that put us into where we have this surplus. Dorothy went out and, like I said, picked up more restaurants like that. And she's actually holding back right now, even though we still have a surplus, because we know our peak's done for the year. So we're afraid to take on too many commercial customers and not be able to deliver for them. The best thing, if you want a restaurant to buy from you, get a chef to visit you. It's not always easy, but we've had 2 do it, and they're hooked. You couldn't blast us out of their pockets with dynamite. Next best thing is to have them sample the product. And at the time I put this deck together, we couldn't take more customers. It was only when these guys went away that we could even take another restaurant. Ebb and flow of production. Birds molt in the summer of their first year over 12 months of age. That's very important to understand. So if they're in their first year, but they're 11 months, they probably won't molt that year. If they're 10 months, they definitely won't molt that year. Molting is for 6 weeks. During the molting, egg production goes to almost 0. It will go like this and then slowly come back and not quite be where it was at your summer peak. It'll be about like that, right? The only way to deal with this is strategic brooding. Birds lay at 22 to 24 weeks of age. Molt for us is July, August. Birds hatched after September to October will not molt the next year, but they'll be old enough to lay. That means they won't take part in the big feather throw, and they'll still be producing for you, and you'll have some portion of your flock. So if you strategically bring in birds every late fall, you'll still have some birds that'll produce for you in that following year, even though your production's down. You won't go to 0. The next thing is you have to work with your customers in low season. You just have to explain this is going to happen. With our restaurant customers, we explain it in advance. Like, you're going to have to work with us to get through there. And we do put our commercial customers to a degree ahead of our individual customers, but we make sure, we can get everybody a couple dozen duck eggs during the low season. Supplemental lights do extend production in the winter. Go for 14 to 16 hours of light, and you will get extended production. But remember, it's like a magazine and a gun. Once you fire all the shots, there's no more ammo. And unlike a gun, you can't put a new magazine into your duck. So when you extend production, you reduce the overall life cycle of that bird as a productive member of your flock. Do not run lights all night long. Some people think I'll just put a lamp out there and I'll just leave it on. And no, it screws them up. They require a certain amount of photo period. They need to sleep. They need to relax. They need that, circadian rhythm. So that's your daily rhythm, your circadian rhythm. They need that. If you have a routine where you get up every day at 5 o'clock for work and you go to bed at 11:30 and you do that all the time, that's your circadian rhythm. And somebody comes up with a vacation or a business trip and you got to get up at 2 a.m. and then you got to work late and you do that for a few days in a row and you feel like crap. That's because your rhythm's off. You do that to your ducks, they'll stop laying. If a duck's unhappy, it doesn't lay. If a duck's angry, it doesn't lay. If a duck's freaked out, it doesn't lay. it will actually shut itself down. We've had that happen with people taking care of our birds and not doing a good job. When they get stressed out, they'll shut down their egg process for a couple days. Sometimes it'll take a week for them to start going again. By the way, all my numbers are for southern climates. That is what it is. I don't know what it's like to raise ducks in Pennsylvania or Wisconsin because I've never done it. Lessons you don't have to learn the hard way. Shade is your friend. I've had ducks out. It's 32 degrees out, but it's sun shining and they're in the shade. They like shade. Ice can be dangerous to ducks. We've had them get stuck in swales, on the edges of small ponds and things like that. They can go great in the snow, but thin ice and webbed feet do not work well. So in that time of the year, it is important to walk your property a couple times a day and make sure nobody's stranded because they can end up dead if you don't. Your flock adult should be on 17 to 18% protein feed. More is not better. If you up their protein to like game bird or something because somebody on the internet said so, guess what happens to their egg production? Down. Don't do it. It's not a good idea. It won't make the eggs better, and it won't make them lay more. Too much protein for your layers is not good. Your porch is their porch. If you don't keep them off it, they will poop all over it. If you want them to not mess with something, do not let them know it exists. They become obsessed with things that they like, and they will continue to go back. And right now I have a group of Muscovies that are obsessed with a bag of perlite. I don't know why they like it, but they do, and they're tearing holes in it and eating perlite. And the only way I'm going to make that stop is to take the perlite away because now they know where the bag is. Again, Muscovies can fly, clip the wings. You can cure angel wing, which is a problem that some ducks get. I'll show you in a second how to do it with a horse bandage. Really easy. It's where the wing kind of sticks out like this. The tip sticks out of the side. Ducks love routines. Keep them on a schedule. If we get lazy on a weekend and we're not out there by 9 o'clock, they're screaming. And if you get them enough off their schedule, their egg production drops. They're not like chickens that don't really care. They're not like, oh, you're here? Where were you? I forgot you were part of this. They know you. They know their keepers. They want to be fed at the same time, let out at the same time, put to bed at the same time, watered at the same time. They want to be treated the same way every day. They're like Wayne and Garth, right? They fear change. Some of you know where that's from. And sooner or later, predators will find you. So take preemptive action. Even with our limited predator protection, when they got in, we lost 30 birds. And if you run the numbers on that, that's thousands of dollars in production we lost. And at the worst possible time during the low winter period as well. How to cure angel wing. So this is actually a mullard. If you look at him, his head looks a little weird and he's really long. This duck is half, probably Cayuga and half Muscovy. They will crossbreed. That would make this bird a mule. It's sterile. It's a great meat bird. It'll run around. It'll do things, but it can't breed. If it was a female, it wouldn't be able. It would lay eggs, but it won't lay eggs that are fertile. But this duck got angel wings. So what we did is we took a horse leg bandage and we just wrapped it around and pulled the wingtip in, and then put a little piece of duct tape over it to make sure it didn't come off. And that bird sat like that for about 4 days, and it completely cured the condition. You have to do this as soon as that wingtip starts to come out, just a little bit, as soon as you see it. If it comes out and it's out for a few days, it'll be permanent, and you'll actually hurt the animal trying to push it back in. Angel wing does not hurt them, but it looks really funky, and it gets them to get stuck in stuff like that. There's a lot of theories as to why. Some people say it's because people feed them bread. If that was true, every park would be full of angel wing ducks, right? What it really is, and you don't know exactly why, it can be too much protein, actually, too much quality in the feed. Their bones grow faster than their muscle structure, and that muscle and tendon that holds that wingtip in develops too slowly. And because the bones develop faster, it just kind of finds its way out there. If you pull it in, it gives that tendon and that muscle time to catch up, and it cures the problem. And this duck was quite affectionate because we cured its angel wing. So they can be kind of fun. Links and resources. We'll make sure this is available somehow to you because there's a bunch of websites here, but obviously PermaEthos, Survival Podcast, Duck Chronicles, 9 Mile Farm, and all my social media. I want to conclude this showing you a little bit of the property improvements. It'll only take a couple more seconds. We'll take questions. But what I want to do before we do that is remind you of famous words by Bill Mollison. You do not have a slug problem. You have a duck deficiency. I live in an arid region of central Texas. We had a few slugs. I haven't seen one in years. We had a few. but we never really had a slug problem. We had a grasshopper problem, though. We had grasshoppers that would ring our trees and kill newly planted trees. They would ring the cambium off the trees. We do not have a grasshopper problem, and we never did. We had a duck deficiency. This is what correcting our duck deficiency did. We're back to the property here. What I've done, this is a satellite image from February of 2015, and the pictures you're about to see are from about March 1st, 2016. A little over a year difference here, and since this is from Google Satellite, there's no way for me to finagle anything. This is the lowest view that it would allow, and you can see the property is bare. There's over here where we did the food forest, there's some greening up along the swales, but everything is bare. Everything is desolate. This is the area right in front of the house from that shot. You can see how that is. After the ducks spent a couple of years rehabbing the property under our management, this is what that same area looks like now. Wish Google would go over the house again. This is the area between the house and our backward outbuilding where we have like an urban small micro food forest. As you can see, it was pretty desolate. Joe and I actually hand dug these 3 swales here, and that's what that area looks like now with those ducks. And this is the fruit trees before they broke bud. You can see we have fruit trees all through there, and it just looks lush as you could be. This is the western pasture down by, this was a pond site that was never actually a pond until now. This is that area where the ducks can get out to that 1/4 acre. It's the very back northwest corner of the property. This is what that area looks like now. And I didn't do this. I mean, people look at this and go, this is what permaculture does. This is what permaculture does. But Jack Spirko didn't do this. The ducks did this work just by being properly channeled and managed. This is the area behind that pond. This is how lush that grass is. That's my 150-pound shepherd sitting in it. This is a place where nothing would grow a few years ago. This is probably the most impressive thing. This is the southwest corner of the property, and this is where the duck holding area is. That right there, that's actually rock. That's limestone rock exposed. When you would walk across this area right here, you see a little bit there too. This was like multiple places with rock slabs slipping out of the ground, maybe 2 inches of dirt. This is what that piece of property looks like now. They did that. That's the power of duck poop, and that's what we've been able to do with them as partners on the property. And it's I look at that and I think, we could do this everywhere. I mean, that's how I feel like everybody should be doing this. This shouldn't be impressive. This should just be another guy doing another thing, and that's what we're trying to make this. That's why we put this presentation together. There's a contact information at the end. Joe, I'm going to turn it back over to you to start throwing questions at me or whatever. Hope everybody enjoyed that. I'm not in front of a room because I can't see if I kept everybody's attention or anything, but this is what you can do with ducks, both to be profitable and to restore land.